Yoriichi Tsugikuni was a natural-born monster and the strongest demon slayer in history. According to Muzan, between the two of them, Yoriichi was the real demon. But the King of Demons only met the Sunbreather once. He had no idea how ridiculous the Ancient Slayer's abilities really were. The moment he laid eyes on Muzan, Yoriichi came to the conclusion that he was born to defeat him. These two are surprisingly similar. Both of them were from noble families, and both of them were nearly killed just moments after being born. Muzan's heart stopped many times while he was still in his mother's womb. He didn't have a pulse and he wasn't breathing. They decided to cremate him, but it seems like the closeness of the fire made him struggle and cry, which is pretty ironic. Yoriichi was born a twin. That sort of thing tends to complicate inheritance. Yoriichi's father decided to kill him since he had a huge birthmark on his face. But his mother's rage saved his life. Although he survived, as a human, Muzan was sickly and his body was frail. As an ancestor of the Ubuyashiki bloodline, Muzan's condition was similar to Master Kaguya's. He only became a demon after receiving experimental treatment, and that involved a very special flower. Yoriichi's family believed he was deaf and challenged. He said his first words at the age of 7. But strangely enough, when he finally did, he didn't struggle at all. Michikatsu assumed Yoriichi had been trolling him for their entire lives. But no, Yoriichi literally couldn't talk before then. Even with a twin brother, Yoriichi's existence was truly one of a kind. That birthmark he nearly died over was actually a Demon Slayer mark. That is insane! For the most part, Demon Slayer marks are exclusive to Hashira level characters. They grant inhuman special abilities and physical enhancements. Defeating Muzan and the Upper Moon demons would have been impossible without them. And I believe that like Muzan to demonhood, Demon Slayer marks are a contractible condition and Yoriichi is the progenitor. To unlock one, a person's heart needs to beat 200 times a minute. Their body temperature also needs to be more than 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Those are very sickly traits. But what's even crazier is that exposure to a marked slayer is the most vital aspect to acquiring one. It's a sickness that spreads once certain conditions are met. With one, a slayer can grip their weapon so hard that it superheats and slows the regeneration of demons. And that heat can spread from one weapon to another. A person becomes dozens of times faster and stronger. Some characters have been able to see inside the bodies of other living creatures. They also gain resistance to being turned into demons by Muzan's blood. Yoriichi had access to all of that at birth. It took a while for him to realize that other humans aren't like him. When his brother asked him for swordsmanship advice, Yoriichi told him that an opponent's lungs expand before they strike. So all he needed to do was watch the movement of their bones, muscles, and blood closely. Demon Slayer marks are said to be cursed because anyone who has one reduces their lifespan to below 25 years. Kokushibo didn't understand how Yoriichi managed to break this rule by living past the age of 80. But Yoriichi's ability to handle the mark is like Muzan's power compared to the demons he's created. There's a limit to how much of his blood they can handle, just like there is a limit to how close a slayer can get to Yoriichi. After all, he does represent the sun. But breathing styles are even more important, and they're from Yoriichi too. He created sun breathing as his technique of choice, but none of the other slayers were able to handle it. So, Yoriichi created the core styles of water, flame, thunder, stone, and wind. With that in mind, Yoriichi knew more breathing styles than any other slayer in history. Being able to create 5 of them based on the physical capabilities of others is a crazy feat of perception and comprehension. But even then, for many, the core styles are still too difficult. Mitsuri left the path of flame breathing because her signature style of love breathing was more suited for her body. Shinobu and her older sister Kanao created derivatives of the water breathing style for similar reasons. Zenitsu could only use the first form of thunder breathing, and that was the only form that Kaigaku couldn't do. Most people have to go through intense training just to learn the basics of breathing techniques. training at high elevations, or even splitting massive boulders. Meanwhile, this was always Yoriichi's natural way of breathing. Mind you, breathing styles are explicitly stated to give humans the strength of demons. At only 7 years old, the first time Yoriichi held a sword, he dismantled an elite sword tutor with surgical precision. He even managed to avoid dealing any permanent damage. At the same age, Yoriichi was able to run at full speed for 24 hours straight without even a hint of exhaustion. Over a decade later, when he found his pregnant wife's body, Yoriichi didn't move an inch for 10 days straight. Going that long without any food or water is unreal. We don't even know if a demon can survive that long without a meal. The best we can do is point to Nezuko since she eats sleep, but Yoriichi was not sleeping. In terms of his expressions or movements, Yoriichi was unreadable. Despite his extreme senses, Muzan couldn't tell that Yoriichi was strong at all. Yet the Slayer could deliver a swift and gentle end to any demon. Even when he was more than 80 years old, Yoriichi was still too strong for Upper Moon 1 to even touch him. He would have defeated Muzan's strongest demon with only 2 strikes. As crazy as it might sound, I'm under the impression that a 7-year-old Yoriichi would beat any of the Hashira if he wanted to. Sun breathing is so unreasonably difficult that even with a mark, Yoriichi's twin brother Michikatsu couldn't handle it. The only reason Tanjiro could was because his family hid its forms as a traditional dance for over 400 years. Yoriichi gave the Kamado family his Hanafuda earrings, but even more than that, he gave them his condition. Demon Slayer marks only returned to the Hashira because Tanjiro's family had been keeping it for hundreds of years. It's why Tanjiro's dad had the strength to decapitate a bear, but died at such a young age. But funny enough, Yoriichi did not complete sun breathing until he faced Muzan. The 13th form of sun breathing remained a mystery to Tanjiro for a long time, but he realized that it's actually the repetitive completion of the 12 forms. Each completion makes the next one stronger. And I'm pretty sure that Yoriichi only took this long to complete the form because nothing could survive multiple hits from him before then. And when he did, Yoriichi one-shot Muzan. Let's think about that for a second. Muzan was hit with a drug that turns demons into humans, one that made him 9,000 years older, another that slowed down cellular division, and a fourth one that destroys cells. But even then, Tanjiro, Yu, Mitsuri, Gyomei, Sanemi, Obanai, Inosuke, Zenitsu, Kanao, and Yushiro still couldn't beat him. Ultimately, it came down to the rise of the sun. Muzan managed to overcome losing his head after Yoriichi's initial attack. Really, we've only seen Muzan fight while he has a bunch of status effects and debuffs. He was so much stronger than we were ever shown. And up against Yoriichi, he was in his prime. But even though he was seething with anger, instead of fighting Yoriichi, Muzan ran away. More than that, he turned himself into tiny clumps of flesh. And out of 1,800 pieces, Yoriichi managed to destroy 1,500 in a second. But that remaining 300 was enough for him to get away. After that, Muzan actively avoided Yoriichi for the rest of his life. This is the same evil monster that claimed to be no different from a natural disaster. Despite his hyper-regeneration, Muzan still had wounds from his encounter with Yoriichi hundreds of years later, and they still burned. The psychological scars were so deep that just the sight of Yoriichi's earrings were enough to make him freak out, and this fear was inherited by other demons through his blood. Yoriichi and Muzan were two different types of monsters. Muzan was driven by his fear of death, and Yoriichi was driven by his appreciation of life. Muzan's supernatural condition made him a demon. Yoriichi's brother repeatedly claimed that his twin was favored by the heavens. When Tanjiro saw Yoriichi's technique through his ancestor's eyes, the Sunbreather looked more like a spirit than a human. Yoriichi's mother was very religious. She prayed for strife to leave the world every day of her life. She also prayed for the sun god to shine warmly on Yoriichi. Yoriichi Type 0 was a battle doll based on him. It needed 4 arms just to emulate a fraction of his physicality. And even after 300 years of operation and severe damage, Type 0 was still stronger than a Kanoe rank Demon Slayer. That's the rank Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu were when they fought Upper Moon 6. Only a handful of Slayers even managed to survive that long. Type 0's possession of 6 arms is also the trait of an Hashira, a type of superhuman being in Buddhism. However, there is also another type of powerful being known as a Deva. They were said to be godlike, long-lived, and eternally young, which is obviously represented by the demons. Hashiras and Devas also hate each other and are forever at war. Type 0 was programmed with 108 movements. In Buddhism, 108 is a sacred number. It is said that a person can experience 108 sensory states, and the formula to figuring that out is as Demon Slayer as it gets. You multiply the senses of smell, touch, taste, hearing, sight, and consciousness by whether they are painful, pleasant, or neutral. Then again by them being internal or external feelings, and once more by them being in the past, present, or future. 6 times 3 times 2 times 3 equals 108. Many characters in Demon Slayer possess supernatural senses. Tanjiro's sense of smell, Zenitsu's sense of hearing, Kanao's sense of sight, Inosuke's sense of touch, or Genya's sense of taste. Yoriichi had all of them in one. As Slayers, they've all been brought together by their shared pain. They've been able to rediscover joy by being together and have been united against the creatures that are indifferent or neutral to destroying lives. It's a battle that has spanned generations, where teachings from the past have miraculously made it to the future. Yoriichi was the messiah of the Demon Slayer Corps, and an absolute monster. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.